What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you, and I hope you enjoy the forthcoming Turkey Day. Gravy up, everybody. It's happening. Time to be thankful. You can find something to be thankful for, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Today is November 26th, 2024. I'm Trey. That's Mark. How you doing, Mark? You feeling thankful?
Yeah, man. Got my health. Family's good. Speaking of having health, I had to drive my wife to a routine doctor's appointment on Saturday, and saw a homeless guy panhandling with a pro-Trump sign. This is over adjacent to Beverly Hills, and I was like, "What a good fucking grift, dude! Some like rich guy's gonna give him like a $50 bill." So
Actually,
that's
yeah,
like,
you're right. No, that's a good point. When you first said that,
yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ. It's like, when you hear
Hmm.
about like gay people or black people or anything like that, like supporting Trump, you're always like, what are you doing? And that's what I first thought when you said that. But then when you
Hmm.
elaborated, I was like, actually, you're right. That is probably a good plan.
Yeah,
Because
and then.
the pro Trump part will overcome any of the other parts. Like a typical
Mhm.
like MAGA person who has money driving by a homeless person is gonna be like, get a fucking job, whatever. But if they're repping MAGA, if they're repping Trump, they'll forget all of that and just, you know,
Mhm.
give them a fucking $100 bill or whatever. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. It's a good move.
It's the only way the conservative movement's going to help him. So get
Right.
that $50.
Yeah.
Then the highlight was my wife gets nervous for doctor's appointments, so she took a Xanax, and she was so high on the drive back that she tried to put her sweater on over her seatbelt. So that was a fun Saturday.
Nice.
Um, today's show we're going to talk about DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, totally not named after a meme coin that Elon is invested in. And
Is that, by the way,
yes, yes,
is that
yes,
I
yes,
know that, but I'm saying, like, is that acknowledged?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So Elon's like, yeah, I get my own special department, and guess what? I
Uh-huh.
named it because
Yeah.
you know how I love Doge. Doge, that's my
Hmm.
thing. Doge is my
Hmm.
thing, and I
Hmm.
get my own department, and so look what I came up with. Like
Hmm.
that's that. Okay, right. Just
Hmm.
making sure. Okay.
Speaking of other internet dipshits, Matt Gaetz is now on Cameo. Please do not give him $250 to play a joke on your friend. Someone also tricked the Costco guys into doing a pro-Nazi video for Richard Sherman. So
hmm
there we go. Everybody's doing that.
Yeah, I told this when you said it. First of all, the Costco guys are like, something in big. It's not big business. That's not what it is. Big
The Rizzler.
justice. Now the Rizzler
Oh yeah.
is adjacent to
Mm-hmm.
this other feller in big. I've been trying to bone up on this recently because I'm so out of the loop. But yeah, the Rizzler is like a charismatic fat child who, and I was a fat child, so I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also adjacent to this father and son duo, something and Big Justice, and they were all on Jimmy Fallon together recently. But anyway, the whatever in Big Justice, they did a cameo for Richard Spencer. They got tricked into doing it, and I told you when you sent it to me, like it reminds me of one of my favorite dreams I've ever had. I know nobody gives a fuck about your dreams, but this is probably the funniest dream I've ever had. Was I had a dream once years ago when Corey was really popping as the Buttercream Dream online, and he was doing cameos. I had a dream once that Corey got tricked into doing a cameo for brutal Filipino dictator Rodrigo Duterte. And he was doing his whole like Buttercup. He's like, "Skew, you had Duterte, yeah, my man," like that whole thing. And like, I literally woke up laughing so hard and couldn't stop laughing because it's like I could see that happening to Corey. So it's funny
Didn't
seeing that play out in real life with a Nazi instead of a dictator. But yeah,
I
cracked
feel
me
like
up.
we talked about it on the show a couple years ago. A bunch of American celebrities got tricked into like by Russian intelligence to doing like cameos to call for the overthrow of like Moldova's prime minister or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, last bit of tech news. So I haven't checked today, but a couple days ago, Truth Social's value had continued to crater, which shocked me because like
Yeah, I
I
don't.
assumed the existence of it was to, to be a placeholder for bribes, right? There's nothing stopping like Qatar or China or whatever being like, I am willing to buy Truth Social at a $5 billion valuation or whatever, right? And so of which Trump would get a huge cut, but apparently not yet or whatever. Anyway, and like his supporters, the people bought into it because they thought it would make them rich because they'd be able to get in on it, or are very upset. People have lost their life savings. One guy said he thought he was going to be able to buy a cruise ship, not a bass boat, a cruise ship. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't get that. So you said it continues to crater? Because, like, I don't, all that Wall Street shit is fucking money, Harry Potter shit to me. I don't understand any of it. But I thought, like, I know it's going to come up later. Like, Elon Musk, on the other hand, after the election, his stock is through the roof, literally
Mm-hmm.
fucking popping off.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
talk about
I,
it.
I
Yeah.
know that Truth Social ain't worth anything in reality, but I just would have thought that off the back of such a huge win for Trump and everything, that it would
Mm-hmm.
like, it would at least pump it up a little bit. It would juice it or something
Mm-hmm.
because of if whatever, I don't know. I don't know how any of it works. That's just what I would have thought. So my point is, I guess, if even in this scenario we're in right now, if even now that stock is bottoming out, then it truly ain't worth shit, right? Like if it ain't hitting
Mm-hmm.
right now, there's no way for it to ever. Ain't nobody
Right.
ever getting no cruise ships or bass boats out of Truth
Right.
Social at this point.
Yeah. I don't know if you see what Laura put in the doc, but she's having trouble connecting to the YouTube stream. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about that. You work on that while I get to this next story.
Okay, all right.
So, uh, the so some Nazis marched through Columbus over the weekend, which is depressing. But I want to talk about like maybe all is not lost yet, because what happened was they let me quote here from the story. Uh, the neo Nazis told police they'd never experienced a response like the one they received in Columbus. They said people pulled guns on them and threw cans of vegetables as they marched, waved flags, and yelled racial slurs. One of the officers noted the men were covered in pepper spray. Quote, is from a Nazi. We do this all over the U.S. We've never been attacked like this, man, the driver told police from his seat in a U-Haul. They're riding around the back of a U-Haul. At one point, while being detained, the man driving the vehicle accidentally pepper sprayed his partner in the passenger seat of the van. I watched this footage. It's absolutely fucking hilarious. Um, a bunch of black dudes organized a counter march the next day that was much bigger. They marched the same route. And here's the. They didn't believe cops that were statements and they weren't charged, but I want to quote here from an officer who was on the scene, a reporter watching the scene. One black officer tried to reason with the marchers, pointing out that they were bound to see confrontation from people for shouting hateful things. Quote, I definitely feel your First Amendment rights to say whatever nonsense this is, but come on, man, the Buckeyes are playing. Man, come on.
And I feel that, dude. I've been
Yeah.
at weddings of dear friends before and been like,
Mhm.
the fucking Vols are playing. What do you do? We live in Knoxville. What are you doing? So like, let alone a Nazi rally. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, dude. You got to fucking plan
Mhm.
that better. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's crazy to show they call everybody on the left cucks and snowflakes and all this stuff. I mean, although at the same time they do also call us like, special forces Antifa operatives and stuff who are,
I'm
as
excited for
dangerous
the
as anybody.
reemergence of Antifa. They when every Trump presidency they come out like cicadas from their
Right.
underground lair where they've
Well,
been
this feels to
training.
me like it should be like the start of it. Neo
Uh-huh.
Nazis show up and do a march and they fuck
Mm-hmm.
around and then they find out they get given that what fur.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's Antifa's wheelhouse, or at least it's supposed to be. But it's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I thought you guys were hardcore. You know what I mean? You
Oh,
fucking
if they want to get in with Antifa, they'll show up in Portland. That's what they'll do. Every time they need some footage or whatever, they just go to Portland. Uh,
yeah. But dude, if you just show up, so it seems to me for me that you said that a group of black men organized a counter march. So I'm just assuming that a lot of this resistance to these guys was black dudes, black people. Because I'm just, if you show up yelling explicitly racist things or whatever, talking about how
mm-hmm.
they're subhuman and white supremacy and all this stuff, and then some black people fuck your shit up, like what I mean, what else was supposed to happen? But I know they think like the government is supposed to protect them, but then
Right,
like
and they do.
when
Yeah.
right, and they normally do, and then when black people riot in air quotes after another unjustified police shooting or whatever, then it's that's got to be squashed immediately.
And the
So
Nazis show up and counter protest the anti-police
right,
protests, and they all fight alongside the police. Yeah.
yeah.
Look forward to it. Yeah.
So yeah, that all checks out. But all right,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna keep going. By the way, producer Matt is generally back, but tonight it's producer Laura. I'm not saying we're gonna switch back and forth every time, but you guys love Laura. She's here. We got two producers in the stable now. Yeah, we're moving up in the world, but producer Laura is with us tonight, and we do appreciate that. This is Weekly Skews. Before we continue, as always, I want to remind you of a few things. If you'd like to see me do stand up comedy live and in person, and of course, you should want to do that, then go to TreyCrowder.com and check out my upcoming tour dates. Next weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving, I'll be in Northern California, the Bay Area up there in Sacramento. Those shows are already filling up and looking good, which I appreciate. Looking forward to that. And then after that, my yearly holiday homecoming shows back home in Nashville at Zany's, one of the best clubs in the country. And then I'm closing out 2024 at the Den Theater in Chicago, Illinois on December 21st. One of my favorite venues I've been to in the past 5+ years. So check those out. But also, I got plenty of dates in 2025 already up and on the website. Go to TreyCrowder.com. Check them out. Come see me. Also, if you'd like to support this show, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. We $5. You can go to weeklyskews.com/more or go on Patreon and search for my name. You'll find us either way. $5 a month gets you access to 2 full-length bonus episodes where we talk about things that come up in the interim, things we don't get to, things that happen in between. It's just this show. It's just more of it. So if you like this show, you can get 2 more of it for $5 a month on Patreon and support the show in the process. So we hope you'll consider it. Sign up on there, get some more Skews in your life. Now, as for the show tonight, as we talked about earlier, we got the perfect people in charge of finally reining in the inefficient bureaucracy that is the American government. A meme lord named Elon Musk and also his Indian sidekick, Vivek Ramaswamy. They've been given the keys to their own brand new, shiny governmental agency, the D.O.G.E.
It's not an agency.
Well, whatever it is.
It's a podcast.
Okay. Okay. Sure. The Department of Governmental Efficiency. And they got big plans, most of which don't make any sense. We'll talk about them all a little later. But first, we begin on that subject, really, with the Daily Dumbass. Laura, graphic, please. Tonight's DD, federal employees who didn't realize their social security numbers were also reflective of their competence via numerology. This is the aforementioned Vivek talking about their plans, their ideations.
Get in there on day one, say that anybody in the federal bureaucracy who is not elected representatives obviously are elected by the people, but of the people who are not elected, if your social security number ends in an odd number, you're out. If it ends in an even number, you're in. There's a 50% cut right there. Of those who remain, if your social security number starts in an even number, you're in. And if it starts with an odd number, you're out. Boom. That's a 75% reduction. Then literally stochastically, okay?
You can
one of the virtues of that, it's a thought experiment, not
just, stupid. It's extremely illegal to the extent laws even fucking matter anymore. And I'd like if you do want to attack the federal bureaucracy, just trying to annoy everyone till they quit is probably the best way to do it. So hiring the 2 most annoying people on the planet to fucking go around from government department to government department is probably a smart strategy. But I want to quote here from Mark Meadows, one of Trump's former chiefs of staff, who talked about reining in the federal bureaucracy. He said, quote, "I think Elon will find it easier to go to Mars." Right. Which really hit for me.
So to be completely fair to him, but this is still stupid and don't hit. He said that he's like, that's just a thought experiment. Obviously, we can't do that. What we imagine that you could do that, but you could also filter for incompetence for competence and zeal. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he says. But it's like appropriate to me because it's like kind of their whole thing. It's like, imagine we could do this thing that would be great for everybody. And then everybody listening is like, God, that's awesome. Listen to what they're going to do. But it's like, but they don't know how to actually do that thing. There's no they have concepts of a plan for how to, there's no real substantive path forward for them. They're just like, oh, we're going to get there. We're going to make, you have no idea how great we're going to make America again. Listen, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it's like, how are you going to do that? And it's like, well, imagine we could do it this way. And it's like, okay, but can you? Well, no, obviously we can't do it that way. But we're just saying, like, if we could, that would be cool, right? And it's like, so it's all just bullshit. But I'm honestly, I'm kind of worried about all this because, and this is going to come up a lot tonight because it's relevant. But as longtime listeners know, my day job when I started stand-up was I worked for the federal government. I worked for the U.S. Department of Energy for 6.5 years before I quit in 2016. And I've still got a lot of very good friends who still work there. And actually one of them got married last weekend and I went to it. So I saw a lot of my old D.O.E. employee friends at my buddy's wedding, and they're pretty worried about all this. They're sweating bullets about it, and like obviously they're my friends. I'm biased, but like they're good people who
Well,
work hard, and I'm worried for them. But they're scared that
you can
that
tell
this is going to
them.
actually happen. So
This
kind of
whole
close to me.
this whole Doge thing has a grand opening, grand closing vibe to it to me. But like, because like there was a report in Rolling Stone the other day, like a notebook dump that was going to be on the record from a bunch of people in Trump's orbit that went off the record because they won. A lot of them were expecting to lose, but they were going to blast Elon, and I'm quoting here, as an annoying fucking loser.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he was taking credit for a bunch of other people's shit. And also, like, how are they going to these dudes who think they can judge the competence of others when they don't even know how to do their own fucking jobs is crazy to me.
Right.
If you read reporting about how like SpaceX and Tesla and Twitter is actually run, Twitter's the one he actually fucking focuses on. But like, there are people who work at SpaceX whose entire job it is to babysit Elon and get him out of the room when important shit's being done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that he's some like super genius is like really weird to me, and I'm like, every reporter who's treated him that way over the years should probably go find another line of work.
I just don't know how any rational person can still believe that when you just look at his like output on Twitter daily. You know what I mean? Like, just watch, like, it's not just that he tweets all goddamn day. So it's like, how hard could he possibly be working? It's just also the stuff that he tweets. It's such like 19-year-old edgelord shit posting bullshit that, like, if Albert Einstein was alive today, he wouldn't be tweeting that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not a fucking super genius. Like,
he's an Edison.
demonstrably.
He's Edison taking credit for a bunch of other people's work.
There you go.
Right?
Yes, he's much closer to Edison. Yes, that's right.
Cue up this video of Maye Musk. So since Trump's back in power, we got to do this criminology bullshit where all this behind the scenes stuff is going on. So like, for context here, all these stories about everyone hates Elon appear to have prompted his mom to go on Fox News and say this shit.
Yes. I mean, he walks around as the wealthiest man in the world, bar none. Do they like him, really?
You know, I don't like the word wealthy or billionaire or things like that because I think it's degrading. I think he's the genius of the world. And people are loving him for that. They don't, when they see me, they go crazy because I'm his mother.
So his mom had to go on the news and say that people like him.
Right, which again, like, who is that work on? I mean, I guess there's people that does work on, but it's like, what else is his mom gonna say? It's like, of course, he's the bestest boy and everybody loves him and we're so proud of him. It's his fucking mom. Like, it's like the inverse is true, where it's like, or you'd like to think it is. Like, who was that Arizona senator or congressman who, like, they got his entire family to appear in an ad being like, our brother fucking sucks, right? And it's like, if that happens, that's like noteworthy. You're like, damn, that's a bad look right there. But the opposite, just your family, especially your mama, being like, he's my special boy, I love him so much. It's like, what the fuck is that supposed to do for anybody, But I guess there's people out there being like, look, see, listen to her. Who knows him better than her? She knows how great he is. It's silly.
It's not like one of the reasons to have a little like hope on this stuff is like talking about this criminology bullshit about how much like these motherfuckers, like, it's a nest of vipers who all have petty rivalries and opposite views and hate each other.
Right.
So besides everybody turning on Musk, there's a story like the Trump transition team's investigating Boris Epstein, who was apparently trying to charge people $30,000 to $40,000 a month consulting fees to either recommend them for jobs in the Trump administration or to not cockblock them from jobs in the Trump administration, including Trump's current nominee to be Treasury Secretary. Epstein is just a media. He's a guy who goes on TV. That was his whole thing. I think he worked in the White House and Trump won for a little bit. Michael Anton, who famously wrote an anonymous blog called The Flight 93 Election about how it was better to destroy the country than let Hillary be the president. He turned down a job this go around in Trump's White House because he did not want to work with Seb Gorka. This is a man who would kill every single one of us to prevent a Hillary Clinton presidency, but does not want to see Seb Gorka in the lunchroom.
Right. Well, we talked about this last week. I keep coming back to this. It's kind of the only shred of hope that I personally have been able to glean from all this. And the video I did last week was about this subject, where just the idea that, like, the only thing to take any kind of solace in is that this is a cadre of narcissists, megalomaniacs, sociopaths who, like you said, a lot of times have inherently competing interests, and they're all trying to climb up the same bucket, and it's like that just can't surely that will lead to general incompetence and disarray, which, given who's in charge, is a good thing for the country generally. If they keep fucking each other over enough to keep from having time to fuck the general populace, and that's what we got.
They do have different concerns and political beliefs and conspiracy theories they're all caught up in, but the main belief they all differentiate on is they all think they're the specialist boy, and
Exactly,
you can't have all the specialist boys.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So I wanted to get into this because just like how talk about this stupid fucking agency and how it's like it's being treated as the most important thing in the world by a lot of people. It's extremely stupid. But if you want to know, like, they're just, to me, they're signs just giving Elon a pat on the head, because like the new the leader of the congressional D.O.G.E committee in the House is going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's definitely a person you put in charge of stuff when you want it to go well.
Sure.
So I'm sure her and Elon will be fist fighting by like week 2. Over in the Senate, the point person is going to be Joni Ernst, who they do take seriously, but also the idea she's pitching him on. Let me read you this list of stuff she's offering him up. Consolidating government office space and auctioning off unused space, changing the composition of the penny, and curbing payments to the United Nations. Now, the United Nations thing will ignore for this point for this purpose, these purposes. So their idea to increase government efficiency is to Airbnb a floor at the EPA or whatever, and get rid of the penny. Like, this is like the no dumb ideas here, just spitballing
Just
part of this.
Throwing stuff at the wall. Let me ask you about the office space thing, though. I saw another headline about Elon. It was like, day one, no more work from home, right? People got to come back into the office. Because I know, again, because I've got a lot of friends that still work there. Ever since the pandemic, at least the DOE, and I presume most of the federal government, has gone basically full-time work from home. And
that's not quite true. I saw the stats. It's like it's way less than a majority. But maybe the Department of Energy is like highly educated office workers, right?
Yeah,
they can do that. But a lot of people have to come in to like do stuff. So
sure.
Yeah,
well, that's the only part of the government I ever worked in, and that my whole office where I used to work, that they went fully work from home, and so the idea of like, we need to cut down on like the real estate for like office space or whatever, but also we need to force people to come back into the office at the same time. Seemed like an example of like competing interests. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to clear up overhead for government office space, let people fucking work from home. But at the same time, Elon is going like, no more work from home. It can't matter, because like boss men are just, it puts them on full tilt. The general idea of people being able to work from their house, they just can't stand it.
I think the idea is you bring them back. If you force them back to the office, they'll quit. Then you can sell off the buildings, right? Okay. So for context,
so that's what you think the main idea. Think the main thing here is just like they're just trying to get people to quit. Is what they're mainly going to try.
It's either doing layoffs, because then you got to pay severance and shit. A lot of companies have done this.
Sure. Yeah.
So for context here, getting rid of the pennies is probably a good fucking idea. Okay. So because pennies, they're worth 1 cent, but they cost 3 cents to make. Nickels cost 11.5 cents to make. Nobody uses pennies or fucking nickels for the most part. Producing these 2 coins last year cost the Mint $179 million. And we should probably also get rid of the $100 bill for reasons we'll get to in a second. But like, so the only reason we have a penny is because there's one company called Jarden Zinc. Pennies are made of zinc, not copper. They paid $140,000 in lobbying fees in 2011 to get a $48 million government contract later that same year. So it's basically just a make-work program for one fucking zinc company.
Yeah.
And if you want to understand how the U.S. government actually works and stuff we could attack, you can buy a $48 million contract for $140,000 to make a useless product that poisons babies and kills dogs.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Big zinc stepping in to make sure. Like, who else is on their side? And big wishing well, maybe. Like, who else wants
Coinstar?
Yeah, who else wants pennies to stick around? Fucking nobody. But so much things in the government just end up coming back to that, like lobbyists, and it's just where the money goes. And yeah, like you said, that's a hell of an ROI, dude. $140,000 in lobbyist fees in return for a $48 million government contract. You can't beat that with a stick. Yeah. And see, that's that's the type of shit that like that should be reined in. Do you know what I mean? Like, that type of thing.
We're talking about this. We're talking about this before we got on the air, but like when we talk about bureaucracy and waste, comparing the government, the private sector, it's so weird because like if normal private sector stuff gets done in the government, it's a huge scandal. For example, if someone takes a company plane somewhere, right? That happens every day in the private sector. It's not considered wasteful for personal use, right? Or like if somebody uses a credit card for like a 4-martini lunch that costs like $500 to take their friends out. That happens every day in corporate America. It's not considered wasteful. And when people say like, oh, you want the government running healthcare like a bureaucracy, it's like, if you dealt with Blue Cross Blue Shield, what the fuck are you talking about? So like, to me, like, like we should get money out of politics. We might, if we have time, we might get that later because I got some stuff on the back end of this D.O.G.E stuff about it. But like, people are going to lobby the government for crooked shit. It's the cost. A lot of it's the cost of doing business. Now, when you catch them doing it, the voters, the most important lobby, should fucking punish the politician and the company. Right, but like every example of fraud, you can't pick out these small examples of fraud and waste and be like, well, I guess we got to abolish democracy. That's fucking stupid.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that, but I do think that, again, because I worked for the federal government for 6.5 years, and I remember when I worked there, I saw all kind I think two things can be true. I'm not saying that the same thing doesn't exist in the private sector, and also the government. I worked in government contracting. I'd let out government, so most of what the government does is contracting with private industry to do the work they want done. And I know that they get gouged like crazy on that shit because I was part of it. So like, it ain't that that's efficient either. It's not, but like still there's a lot of bullshit that goes on in the gut with like, as far as efficiency and all that stuff. Like I'm sure this happens in private industry all the time too, but like, and I'm sure you already know this, but like every year, all the various departments, they had their own budget. And at the end of the fiscal year, if they had money left over, they would let out some bullshit contractor, sign up some fucking purchase order or something for something that would amount to getting rid of it. Like, I don't know how many different times we painted over our parking lot at the federal building when I worked there, but it seemed like every single year. And because everybody in charge of those departments is like, if we don't spend this money, they'll reduce our budget. And we can't have that happen. Right. We have to illustrate that we need this. So they just spend it on shit that they don't actually need.
Are we going to keep making Elon's case for him?
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to be honest and upfront. I'm just saying, like, there's like, but I know, but I don't trust these motherfuckers to do that or any of these people. Because I told you before we started, my whole even when I worked there and I saw this shit firsthand, I still never trusted the whole conservative talking point of like slashing government spending and stuff, because like you couldn't even bring up the idea of touching the fucking D.O.G.E or the military. And again, I worked with a lot of people who came from the military, and the stories I heard about the shit that they did, the insane
let me tell you a story.
There.
My buddy was in the Air Force, and for the same reason you just described, he was stationed in Mountain Home, Idaho. And because if you don't spend all your budget, you get less the next year. They put in a second golf course at this one Air Force base. Right. So the Pentagon just failed its 7th audit in a row, $830 billion, and just missing this year. For comparison's sake, I think Medicare for all would be $68 billion and save like $70,000 a year.
See, that's what I always thought about. It's like, if you're right about there being inefficiency and waste in the government, but when you completely take the whole military and D.O.G.E off the table as a non-starter, I don't take you seriously anymore, because that's where the biggest amount of that shit comes from by far. So if we ain't talking about that, I don't want to talk about none of it. If you're
not starting with the military, then everything, this is all bullshit.
I agree completely. That's how I always felt about it and still do.
So you're talking about who they're going to fire. Elon's like taking, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to start a podcast. We're going to talk about ideas for how to shrink the government. And Elon's taking suggestions on Twitter about who to fire. So his fans are scrolling LinkedIn for government employees who have job titles they don't understand, and bring them to his attention. And he's blasting them out to get death threats. For example, this woman named Ashley Thomas had to make her socials private. Her job title is U.S. International Finance. She works at the U.S. International Finance Corporation. Her job title is Director of Climate Diversification. All right, which Elon apparently thought meant we're going to make hurricanes gender fluid or some shit. like we're going to name them all, give them all gender neutral names like Terry and Bailey or something.
That's
but like,
so funny.
This is about how to she does technical work on how to make agriculture more robust under conditions of extreme weather, which seems like a fairly important job right now. I have no idea if she's good at it or not, but she has science, engineering, and business degrees from MIT and Oxford. She's interested in climate sustainability. She took a job to work for the government where she makes $172K a year, which is not bad living, but it's likely much less than she would earn in the private sector.
Right.
So here's the problem here is like the trade-off with the government job is you get security. You get job security. And if you take that away, who's going to want to fucking do it? A
Right.
person with these credentials is going to go straight to a private sector where they're just as vulnerable as the rest of us, but they're going to make $500,000 a year or
Which is
$750.
Probably
right?
what they want, right? Is just the general privatization of the whole thing. But like this type of thing, this runs off qualified because you're right. You do take, it's like you said, government jobs are secure and there's upsides to it, but you take a big pay cut. And a lot of these people are like, they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed coming out of grad school or whatever, and they want to like help thing. They want to do, what I mean? They want to do work that helps.
Can't have that.
Exactly. Can't. Right. So if you start like punishing that and running these people off, it's like, how the fuck is that supposed to help anything? But the idea, the job title of the director of climate diversification, and then being like, what kind of trans pronoun bullshit is this? Is so goddamn. I mean, it's sad. Funny, but it sounds like something. It sounds made up, even though I know it's not. It's like so over the top that it's just so absurd.
This is a good example of how you're going to end up paying more, because if you take away all this job security, like next time there's Democratic administration, you try to rehire for this position, assuming like they take away your civil service protections and fire her, you're going to have to pay market rate salaries to hire these people back. So next time this person who's making $172K right now will cost you $500K. That's how this is fucking self-destructive.
Right, of course.
Yeah. And also it's just ignorant. Like going back to what we were talking about with the military, federal employees are a very small part of federal spending. Right. Like you pull up this pie chart, Laura.
Yeah.
You look at the
Which,
federal
like I told you a minute ago, they don't. Almost everything is contracted out. Do you know what I mean? Like in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where the Oak Ridge office of the Department of Energy is. I was a federal employee, and I worked in the federal office building where all the feds were at, and the ratio of federal employees to contracted employees who worked for the DOE in some capacity in that area at that office, it had to be like 20-1, except revert. Like, it was crazy. Like that, it was the vast majority of them are not actually federal employees. So I'm
going to be utterly shocked when all these contracts, when we fire these people and the contracts to do some version of their jobs goes to companies owned by Elon Musk. And he paid
that too. Yes, absolutely.
So there's like the federal budget's somewhere around $6 trillion, a little bit more, and civilian federal employees cost $271 billion of that. So $5.8 trillion has nothing to do with personnel at all. Okay.
Right.
So Elon was like, we got to get rid of the F-35, which is a good fucking idea. The F-35 is a wasteful program, but it's because he thinks you're going to replace all long range strike fighter strikes with drones, which they'll just get hacked and turn around and use it on us. So it's fucking stupid. You need human pilots to do stuff. The F-35 is a boondoggle, but that's a totally different thing. You can get rid of it without replacing it with drones. And like talking about how they just pick line items and fucking demagogue about dumb shit they don't understand. So they've been going through the government like civilian science budget and picking out the experiments that sound crazy or frivolous to them, which John McCain used to do this shit when he was like talking about pork barrel spending. And this is like, pork barrel spending to me is like getting a bridge to nowhere built and putting your name on it. Okay?
Right.
Science is good to fund, in my opinion.
Because it's like the argument against NASA and space travel and all this shit for all those years where it's like, just look at all the collateral benefits we got from the space race and the space program from things that were spent. You know what I mean? It's like what? Right? Yeah, but Velcro and all kinds of like
Dippin' Dots.
It just pushes things forward, right? Because people look back on it like, fuck the moon or whatever, fuck Mars. We don't need to do any of that. But it's like so much other stuff came out of those programs, and like you said, science is just generally a good thing to fund. Again, when I worked at the DOE at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory while I was working there, there was a lady scientist out there who had a project going where she was literally trying to open up a portal to another dimension. That was her. That's what she was trying to do. It was a fucking Stranger Things shit, opening up the multiverse. You know me, sci-fi nerd. I was like, hell yeah, keep it going. Bring the upside down in here. Couldn't be much worse. But anyway, I think that shit's cool, so I'm inherently fine with it. But I guess I do get how like your papa in Iowa is like, the fuck is that? My money's going to what is that shit? Fucking,
you pay $10,000 a year in taxes. If you're paying $10,000 a year in taxes, maybe half a penny's going to this shit. Okay,
right?
But it does make people furious when they hear about like one experiment about like the way they describe is putting shrimp on treadmills, but it's trying to study shrimp mobility to see how they survive in their environment, so we can figure out ways to still have shrimp to eat. So like another one was about spraying bobcat urine on alcoholic rats, but that's about studying PTSD. But again, if you don't know, what you talk about, it does sound fucking ridiculous, but like I'm fine with taking a mill or two out of a $6 trillion budget and spraying bobcat urine on rats to see if we can figure out how to fix troops' brains as they come back from Iraq.
Who knows how that's going to turn out, you know?
Right. Well, they have a theory. They're trying to see if the theory works. All right. But like we pay so much money for people to fuck around with weapons that don't even work. Like for example, the F-35, like who was a joint. It's a strike fighter, which means it started off as a fighter plane, but we stopped having dogfights, so we got to figure out something to do with it. So we made it to a bomber that carries one bomb.
And I know you know about like all those, like the men who stare at goat shit or whatever, like the CIA fucking all them crazy ass programs that they had for years and stuff like that. Going back to like military waste, my all time favorite. I know you've heard me talk about this, and I'm sorry. But my all-time favorite is there was I can't remember if it was, I think it was the Navy. Maybe I'm just thinking that because it's aquatic. But one of the military branches funded this study where they paid this lady to see if she could teach a dolphin to talk. Right? She was trying to teach a dolphin to like be able to speak and understand English. I think because they were wanting to use a dolphin as like an underwater agent or something, strap a bomb to its head. Who knows? But they were trying to teach a dolphin to talk. And she couldn't get this dolphin to pay attention because it was so sexually frustrated, right? Because if you know anything about dolphins, they are horny as hell. So what she started doing was she started jacking this dolphin off to get it to calm down, right? Which worked, by the way. She get in there, serve it. He would chill out. He would listen to the lessons, whatever. But then after a couple years of that or whatever, she's like, you know what? I don't think this dolphin's going to talk. And so they canceled the program and she left. And after she left, that dolphin, he just floated to the bottom of the tank and killed himself because he was so heartbroken over his jack off doctor breaking up with him. That's my favorite example of silly military spending or whatever you want to call it.
Talking about serendipity in science, she was trying to teach a dolphin to talk, but instead she figured out how to get a dolphin to kill itself. Then she learned something about mental health in dolphins. Okay, so like that's how science works a lot of times, right? Like the classic examples, like penicillin. Alexander Fleming left like some petri dishes sitting around because he was trying to figure out how to grow bacteria, how bacteria grew. He noticed there was a blank spot in one of the dishes. After running this experiment 1,000 times, it was mold that killed bacteria. That's how we got fucking penicillin.
Right.
If he wasn't just sitting around, he wasn't just fucking around, probably using somebody else's money, we don't have antibiotics.
Well, it's like this headline says, science is inherently inefficient, because it's like the whole thing with science is the idea that like we don't know. That's like the overarching thing. It's like we don't know. We're trying to figure out, but we don't know. So we're going to do this and see if that leads to further, see if that's the answer. And a lot of times it's not the answer, but it might open up some other shit. They're like, holy, we didn't even know. We didn't know that. Look at this thing that now we kind of know that we don't know. And it's like, that's how science just works,
You also have to repeat the experiment like 1,000 times with minor variations to see how it goes, right? So like it's boring work that is, like you said, inherently inefficient, like the headline says. And by the way, Ozempic came from a guy wondering stuff about Gila monster venom. Okay, so like I don't Ozempic appears to be a miracle drug for a lot of people right now, and like Joe Biden's going to open up to be covered by Medicaid, which is going to drive RFK Jr. insane. So that's good. So. Speaking of RFK Jr., a woman named Stella, we was talking about the kind of scientists we are going to fund apparently in this government. A woman named Stella Emanuel, who's a partner in the anti-vax group America's Frontline Doctors, says she's been nominated to join RFK Jr.'s staff. She's the doctor who claims that alien DNA is being used in medical treatments and that fibroids are caused by demon sperm. So let's get our leading scientist on that. See if we can confirm this by doing
women. Yes, top minds. Yeah, scientist is a strong word for somebody like that, dude. I mean, that's completely unsurprising that's what we're dealing with now. But good lord, bro. Like, I mean, who else was RFK Jr. going to hire? But still.
The contradictions in this shit are going to fucking drive me absolutely insane, as any person with non-disordered thinking, I think, will be. Like, not only have to have a clean, living, obsessed Health and Human Services secretary who's clearly on, like, tiger testosterone and more HGH the entirety of the WWE, okay?
Yeah. Like,
Hulk Hogan says Trump has asked him to, like, be on the Presidential Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Like... I was a kid in the 80s, and yes, he did tell us to take your vitamins. Yeah. That's before we knew how much drugs these guys were. And now he's a 71-year-old who's still on steroids. Do not take health advice from this man.
Right. It's also like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like you said, you were a kid in the 80s. It's like there was a time where it's like, because the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, I have to imagine it's focused on the youth and stuff. And it's like, there was a time where I feel like even as a PR stunt or whatever, this would have been effective because he was, a lot of Hulkamaniacs out there. But like kids today,
Schwarzenegger was a spokesman at some point. Yeah,
right, and that makes sense. But like kids today, they don't give a fuck about the Hulkster. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
it'd make more sense to pick like Jake Paul.
Exactly, it would. Yes, 100%.
So back to Elon for a second. Like I said, I don't think Doge will last long, but Elon's net worth went up $100 billion after the election.
Man, that's so crazy.
The richest man in the world, his net worth went from like 240 to 340 or some shit.
That's so nuts, dude.
Because shares of Tesla went up. We talked about True Social earlier, but like Tesla has like the yearly revenue of TJ Maxx. Its stock value is already a fucking fraud.
Right.
I have no idea why people think, other than government connections, that Tesla's electric car manufacturer would be much more successful under Republican administration.
Exactly. I do. I was saying earlier, it's all like Harry Potter bullshit to me, but we've talked about it on the show before for weeks now. It's like, I thought I know a lot of it's just based on vibes and whatever, but I thought it's like, oh, if a bad story comes out about a company, watch out, the stock's going to crater or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it just seems to me that it should feel obvious that Elon actively antagonizing one of perhaps his primary demographic for Tesla consumers. You know what I mean? Like, we live in California. How many fucking Teslas you see? How many you see that have a bumper sticker on them that say, I bought this before he came out as a douchebag or whatever? Like, there's a lot of buyer's remorse out here, but I'm saying these types of people were the ones that were going for Teslas, and he's been alienating them for 3 months. Like, he's going after the MAGA crowd who thinks that electric vehicles are gay and they like coal rolling and drill, baby, drill. And it's like, how does that not negatively impact the stock? I don't understand none of this shit.
If I had to guess, what happened is a bunch of big institutional investors who want to curry favor with the new administration and get on Elon's good side probably just decided to put a couple $1 billion from their $100 billion fund in Tesla and drove the price up. But like, so just corruption, you know how it goes. So speaking of corruption, something like clicked for me about like how to think about the entire election when I saw that the billionaire owner the billionaire owns the LA Times pretty much came out as full MAGA. Now, I'd seen the stories about him spiking anti-Trump stories and a pro-Harris editorial, but that went sort of the same mistaken bucket as Bezos, that like it was about you just being fearful of fascism or whatever. But then he like came out full MAGA, and like then thinking about the election of 1896 that we talked about on Friday in the bonus episode, it just made me rethink the whole thing. For context, 1896 was William McKinley versus William Jennings Bryan. All right, the election happened during a depression. Bryan ran a populist campaign where he wanted to come off the gold standard, all right, which made the money people mad. The money people won the election. Well, that led to the Lochner era of the Supreme Court, where we had where we got child slavery and shit. And it just made me realize this is just the same fucking fight over and over and over again. Right. Also, a funny thing about the Bryan campaign was like he also got tarred unfairly for being an anti-Semite because he was mean about the gold standard. Mm-hmm. Okay, because like you got to really connect the dots there. But like, it's
sure,
1896.
Yeah. If you hate gold, you hate Jews for reasons that should be obvious to anybody.
Right.
That's
so.
Yeah. It's
this whole thing was just about money, capital versus labor. And it was revenge of capital, and we're going to see if it's going to be permanent, like semi-permanent, like the Lochner era was for a few decades, or what. But like, I just want to contextualize some shit for a second, because everyone's gotten very heated about who's to blame for everyone left of Liz Cheney, including Liz Cheney.
Right. Yeah, right.
So a lot of people cemented this take that like people that the Democrats lost in 2024 because of woke or whatever. And I just want to point out that what was happening in 2020, because everyone seems to have forgotten, the people were taken to the streets, setting cop cars on fire. Nancy Pelosi was kneeling in Kente cough. It was probably the peak of wokeness as like a general like social movement. I'm not even talking about the protesters and stuff. I mean like general like white people sort of like talking about anti-racism and putting pronouns in their bios and stuff. That was like 2020. And then Joe Biden won the presidency by 7.5 million votes, and Democrats picked up 2 Senate seats in Georgia.
Right.
So
yeah, but don't you think that it's like, I know we've talked this to death over the past few weeks, and we'll continue to do so, about what it all comes down to. And it's like the whole idea of like, ultimately it's just the goddamn eggs. That's all it fucking is. It's not, eggs being metaphorical, but I'm saying the idea of like, all that was happening in 2020, but just the general idea of like the American electorate, or the big chunk of it in the middle, when they are like, this is bad, who is in charge. I'm not voting for that and it's like in 2020 pandemic, the George Floyd riots and all that, or George Floyd protest, I should say, and all that stuff was happening, and people just being like, things are bad right now. We will punish the current regime. And then this time around, the same thing happened because people don't understand like corporate price gouging and how inflation actually works. But the same thing was in their head. They're like, this is bad. I can't afford my groceries. This is bad. We're going to punish the white. I remember you'd said before the idea that some people think that like we're just going to be stuck in a 4-year pendulum if we're lucky enough to have elections from here on out, because it's always going to be like that, you know?
Social media makes everyone mad all the time, and whoever's in power you're going to be mad at. Is sort of how I feel about it. But what did change in like all the billionaires got on one side, and that one side was against the people. All right, and you can look at the information environment. It's not just Trump buying X. It's like all these billionaires buying newspapers. The LA Times guys censoring the editorial, Bezos censoring the editorial. The New York Times, the Washington Post have fired a bunch of political reporters in the lead up to the Trump administration. They, in order to cater to their billionaire donors, a lot of colleges are pre-censoring curriculums. Okay, so like that's part of the information environment I'm talking about that makes it so confusing for everyone to understand or tell what's going on, even if they're trying. Okay, so to further recontextualize what happened after 2020 and during the pandemic. If everyone remembers, expanded unemployment benefits, $300 per month per kid people got. We also since then killed the Bork antitrust framework, ended non-competes. Biden was set to include dental coverage and health insurance. They put 2 lifelong union lawyers in the NLRB. And like you look at the economic data from 2020, the poverty rates went way down when they mailing out the $2,000 checks and whatever, because so many people live hand to mouth. And a side effect of that, I mean, first of all, when people are way happier during a global pandemic and feel less stress, you really need to think about what the fuck we're doing in this country.
Absolutely.
But also having more money equals freedom in this country, right? So when you have extra money in your checking account and personal savings rates were through the roof compared to where they normally are in 2020, 2021 because the money that the government sent out, it gives people more space to hold out for higher paying jobs. It also makes them realize how much easier life could be with a little bit more money, so they start organizing and start forming unions and going on strikes. And we talk about all the labor actions that happened in the last few years. All this is part of the context of it. And that did not fucking hit for bosses, all right?
Of course not, yeah.
So that's how you end up with like formerly lib-coded billionaires like Musk and Bezos being relieved that Trump is back because they're hoping he can stop their employees from fucking wanting too much and getting uppity.
Right. Okay? So let me ask you, I know you're not going to have the answer off the top of your head for this. And also, I should have fact-checked it, but of course I didn't. I saw some motherfucker on Reddit say that, like, somebody's talking about billionaires and all this shit. And he was like, do you know 70% of American billionaires are actually registered Democrats, or they're on the Democrat side? Do you know anything about that? Was that just a 80% of all statistics are made up thing, or like, or is it what you just said about Bezos? I could buy the idea that like people like Bezos and guys like that were like, it was for a long time more, from a PR perspective, more palatable to be aligned with Democrats, but as long as you were still making billions of dollars and could fuck people over. But as soon as push came to shove, and it's like, oh, well, I mean, if we're talking about me not being able to fuck people over, then I'm on this side. Like that.
Jeff Bezos started off as a bookseller from Seattle. Right. I don't care how MAGA you act, that's them, right? That's lit.
Right. So but eventually, at a certain level, it's like you say. I mean, really, that's what happened with Elon, right? I mean, again, he did. People kind of forget now, but he didn't used to be coded entirely this way for a long time. But then during the pandemic, he was the electric car guy. He was trying to save the world. All this shit. Fucking liberals loved him. California, but like during the pandemic, they were like, your workers can't come to work because it's dangerous or whatever. And he was like, fuck that. I need my goddamn wage slaves. This is unacceptable. And that was
because he was about to hit a stock target that was going to pay him like a $30 billion bonus.
Right. And that was the beginning of his big pivot or whatever.
It's just money. It's all money. Like,
it's always money.
It made me think of like the George W. Bush quote, the business of America is business. That's all this is.
100%.
So I mean, for context, like, Trader Joe's, the hippie-coded grocery store that only sells cage-free eggs, is currently party to a lawsuit that's trying to say unions are unconstitutional.
Yeah, I mean, I buy it, It checks out.
So, like, one thing we all got to get on the same side of is, like, there are no fucking good billionaires. Like, hell, if Oprah and Beyonce had employees that were trying to unionize, they probably would have been singing and speaking at Trump rallies. Okay, so even though on the left side, like, there was like Reed Hoffman, the guy from which one of the Reeds, Reed Hastings is Netflix, Hoffman's like LinkedIn, I think. So Hoffman went on MSNBC and said in exchange for donating to Kamala Harris, he expected her to fire Lena Khan, or it'd be a good idea at least. He was the CTC, and because she was helping consumers too much, you had billionaires basically doing a pincher move against the idea of good government regulation in defense of consumers and workers.
Dude, I'm obviously not calling for it because I don't even know how it would turn, but like literally outside of a full blown rise of the proletariat revolution or whatever, like what can regular people ever hope to do about that? Do you know what I mean?
We don't
like
need to do Chairman Mao shit. We just need to go back to like the 2004 era campaign finance.
But I'm saying, oh well, yes, you're right. Yes, but now that money's in politics in America and it benefits all the people who would possibly change that rule, who the fuck is ever going to change that rule? And it's like you said, there was a person in charge in a high level of government, Lena Khan, right, who had the people's best interest at heart, and a billionaire was like, hey, I'm trying to get Kamala elected, and if I do in exchange, I expect that bitch will be fired because I can't have that shit. And it's like that happens on both sides, and it's what ain't no war but a class war. Goddamn it! Like, what do you do? I mean, I just don't know where any of it's supposed to go.
My main thing is like anybody who doesn't make their number one agenda item on their campaign platform is to try to get money out of politics, expand the Supreme Court. It's just a complete non-starter to me at this point. It's like everything is cooked until that happens. Like there's
right, but it's like the catch-22 of that though is that like a person who's dedicated to doing that will get run out of the race or outspent or whatever by the people that are backed by the same fucking billionaires that keep the status quo going. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the reality is like they just can't compete because they don't have the money because they want to get money out of politics. But someone who's ready to take the money in politics will just squash them in every regard in spending and ads and all that stuff. Because what are you supposed to do? So it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like I said, it's a catch-22. I just don't, there's not a lot of hope there, basically. But
well, I got I got a message from a viewer last week who's like, I didn't respond because I don't like arguing on the internet because I don't think it a context collapse on the internet goes like, it makes everything like sound meaner than it is and more abrupt than it is. And like it was like I got a gripe. America's not a left-wing country. It never will be. Yada yada yada. In which case, like,
did we say that? Did we?
I was saying that like we got like the idea that they should that the lesson they should take is to move right was probably bad, right?
Okay. They mean the American electorate. This country's not going to support leftism, is what they were trying to say. Like this country's not left. Yeah, right. Okay.
But like I'm telling you, people were happy when they had a little bit of better unemployment protection. I'm not talking about like.
Right.
UBI where we all get to goof off forever and write poetry. I'm talking about like slightly better social safety net, better health insurance, and like higher unemployment benefits. And so like everyone's not so fucking desperate all the time. And we just didn't experiment with that.
That type of shit is what people should think of when they hear progressive or left wing, but they don't. They think of it, and it's part of the branding problem or whatever. But
we just did a giant experiment with it in 2020 and 2021, and people fucking loved it. Now, there was the people who were unpopular with were the people who weren't getting a chunk of it, the people who still had to go to work driving for Amazon who weren't getting shit, and that fucking sucked, right? So, like, we got to think about how to fairly implement it, but everyone was in a hurry in 2020 for fairly obvious reasons because people were, getting evicted and dying of the plague. So, like, when you say America's not left wing, no, I do not think guys working on an oil rig are reading about how to be anti-racist on their lunch break. And most of them, anyway. I absolutely fucking agree with you. Right. But it is worth noting here that both Trump and Harris ran on reviving the child tax credit that was popular in 2020 and 2021. Okay.
Right.
Trump also ran in 2016. Again, I'm cursed with remembering stuff. He ran in 2016 not just to Hillary's left in the Iraq War, but he ran on providing Americans with better government-run health care than Obamacare. It was repeal and replace, if anybody remembers that slogan. Okay? Now, I know he was lying.
Right.
But it's worth thinking about why Trump, who doesn't play by any rules and has superior political instincts to anybody currently in politics outside of maybe Bernie,
thought it was like, worth it.
Right. Why did he think it was worth it to lie?
Right.
Why does he think the electorate's ready for these offers?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Because those types of like progressive populist policies are, popular with regular people, and it's like and also you've been on this show in recent weeks. You've said like the idea that they should like leave trans people behind is bullshit. Fuck that. I've heard you say that, and I agree with it. So it's like that's not what you're saying. You're just saying that like there's a lot of progressive or left wing things that are progressive and left wing that people don't realize how popular they are, because when they hear progressive or left wing, they just think of whatever that woke shit. They don't think of, healthcare and better wages and that type of thing, which they should. They should think that unions.
Right.
That's the shit they should think of.
I saw like a couple of centrist Democratic senators do their like Twitter threads thinking through how to process the election, and one of them literally said Bernie was right about everything. And I was like, well, but what he means is like talk about economic issues, be progressive in your social values, but don't fucking antagonize, don't pander. Because the pandering feels fake. Like what you need to do is expand healthcare access for everybody, which will help, everybody, including marginalized groups.
Exactly. Yes.
But what you don't do is not push for helping them materially, but go to their events and announce your pronouns and give the fucking ad clip 100%. While also not helping people. Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%. Yes, I agree with that completely. It's like people I made a video trying to say a shitty version of that or whatever, and I got some DMs and stuff, people being like, why, you're blaming this on minorities and marginalized groups or whatever. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm saying the focus should be more on, like you said, like helping everybody, because that will help marginalized groups too. That should be what the primary focus is all I'm trying to say, and they've just lost the thread. We've been saying that for years, forever. It's been like the fact that the Democrats lost their position as the party of the working man or whatever is one of the biggest failings that they've ever had. I feel like they
won the working class vote. Like it's like with the way those statistics are thrown around is like it's like they lost people to high school educations and then people that construed as working class. But we're talking about like people that own $300,000 a year plumbing businesses are also in that group.
Right. Okay.
So like the idea that so it's a weird way to think about it. So like the people own car dealerships without college degree, you know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about stuff that I have no idea what to make of. Trump's choice for labor secretary is a decent lens to think about whether or not America's in a fighting for labor mood or not, because this fucking floored me. The woman he picked is named Lori Chavez DeRemer from Oregon, who just lost her House race, okay? She's very pro-labor for a Republican to the degree she's, on this particular issue, is to the left of a bunch of Democrats, okay? She was one of only 3 Republicans to co-sponsor the PRO Act, which protects workers' rights to organize. She also co-sponsored the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act, which requires all states to recognize public sector unions. And Senate Republicans freaked the fuck out over this. Okay, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana wrote on X that he plans to question her about her support of Democrat legislation in college that would strip Louisiana's ability to be a right-to-work state, and if that will ever be her position going forward. The New York Post ran a headline quoting conservatives, calling her, quote, toxic and unserious. I understand nothing about this. I understand, like, cabinet picks don't necessarily matter too much because she's going to take marching orders from the White House and a lot of stuff. But this is better than Trump's first administration, where one of his labor secretaries was Eugene Scalia, Antonin Scalia's son, who's fucking psychotically anti-labor. At least she's not, pure fuck the workerism on the boss's side. I have no idea what she's going to do, but like the real test will be his pick for National Labor Relations Board. It's a less high profile, but a very consequential position. And I'm wondering what Elon thinks about this, considering he just spent billions and billions of dollars to get Trump elected so he could try to crush the NLRB. He's part of that lawsuit I talked about earlier. So I have no idea what this is going to mean of anything, but it tells me something about like Trump's read on the mood of the electorate. And I have no idea about again, he's so transactional. Maybe it's like this is just because the Teamsters didn't endorse Kamala. Maybe it's just payback because they asked him to pick her. Maybe that's just
right.
In which case, if it was the difference in Trump winning, fuck Sean O'Brien at the Teamsters. But if it's like, if this just helps keep things from getting worse faster, cool. But like all these different industries. And we got to get out of here, but like it's so weird to me because money's offered at cross purposes, and Trump's in the pocket of everybody. He's promised everything to everybody.
Right. We talked
Like-
about that last week or the week before about the idea, like, Walmart bitching about the tariffs, or like Big Pharma versus RFK Jr. and all these like competing interests. It's like you said, they can't all win, and they all have a lot of power. So what the fuck is that going to look like, or what's that actually
Yeah.
going to mean?
You can't help both Pepsi and Coke.
Right.
He's promised them both.
Right.
The only way you can help both Pepsi and Coke is to like get rid of milk in schools, provide nothing but sodas, and split it 50-50. But then you're
All
pissing
right,
off the big
Mark,
milk
don't
people.
give them any ideas now.
Right. So we got an incoming administration where half of them want to kill Medicare to pay for tax cuts, and the other half want to invent fake accounting so they can do the tax cuts without the Medicare cuts because they want to help pharma and doctor specialists. And like, good fucking luck, guys. Good luck splitting this goddamn atom. So.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, that is sad as it is, that what you just described is literally, again, all that I'm kind of clinging to in terms of optimism, is that it's not.
It can fall apart so quick, dude.
Take a step back and look at it. So much of it is just not feasible because of everything we've said. There's just too many competing interests, too many of which are too powerful, and it's like
when the oil companies are like, wait a minute, you're actually doing these fucking tariffs, but we get all our oil from Mexico and Canada,
right?
And they're going to be like, well, yeah, like, well, why the fuck did we support you? They're like, I don't know, I got to stay out of jail. Fuck you.
Exactly. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I don't think the ultimate winner in all of that is going to be the American people. I guess it's just, I'm hoping that it'll just like the idea that it might gum up the works enough, or fucking, to like slow things down. Like they'll just be so mired in infighting and everything that it will keep them from realizing the most nefarious of their schemes or whatever.
I don't understand
what even are they, but.
Well, I mean, they should work really hard to kill. Everybody in the Senate should work really hard to kill the nominations for Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and after that, just go from there. Because like this domestic shit doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand how Tesla's still going to be in business once China does retaliatory tariffs. It does none of it. Where are you going to get the lithium, Elon? Where's the fucking lithium coming from? So,
yeah, especially since Joe Biden deployed that hurricane to shut down that lithium mine in North Carolina. Hey,
he sure did.
4D chess move. All right, thank you guys for being here. As always, we appreciate it. As a reminder, real quick, go to TreyCrowder.com. Check out my upcoming tour dates. Come and see me, please. Got a lot of dates coming up. It's going to be fun. Also, support the show on Patreon, weeklyskews.com/more, or just go to Patreon and search for my name. You'll find it. $5 a month, 2 full-length bonus episodes. Get more Skews in your life, support the show in the process. But mainly, you keep watching these silly missives, and we'll keep sending them out to you every Skews Day. We'll see you.